It's Ashley from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and welcome to my 1,000 subscribers video. Thanks so much to all of you guys for subscribing to me, and I actually think that when this video comes out, I'll have around 1,500 subscribers, so I think I'm a little late to the party. But better late than never, right? Now that I'm monetized as well, I can start making you guys videos and doing more different types of bakery videos that I've really been wanting to do. So as you saw in the title today, I am going to be comparing two cakes. Now, what I did was I showed them a picture of my sugar sheet cake that I completed a while ago. It's this one right here. You can see it's kind of difficult to do this technique. It's a little bit new as well, so that's why I chose this cake, because it does take a lot of technique. And it's also not really easy to do. And if you mess it up, it can be really difficult to fix. So that's why I decided to go with this cake. It was also one of those cakes that was really impressive, even though it was only a single tier. So I thought this would be really fun to order. And I also personally like eating buttercream as opposed to fondant. So that's why I chose this specific cake to make. So I know that the trend is usually comparing 1-star bakeries to 5-star bakeries, but I found it incredibly difficult to find a 1-star bakery and a 5-star bakery. I found that everything kind of hovered around the 3 to 4.5-star bakery mark, so I found it really difficult to pinpoint that. So I decided to go with a highly rated storefront bakery and a no review home baking business. So a lot of home baking businesses don't have reviews on their page, so I just kind of went with the first home bakery that was close to my house that I found, and I ordered from them. Before we get into actually opening these up, I want to tell you guys my little ordeal when I was trying to order this particular cake from bakeries. I got rejected 8 times by 8 different bakeries. I had actually been ordering these cakes for about 3 to 4 weeks, I want to say. As soon as I kind of was starting to cross over that 1,000 subscriber threshold, I knew that I wanted to do this video. So I started researching and looking into different bakeries that I've always wanted to try and always wanted to buy cakes from, but just never did because I didn't really have a reason to buy cakes from there. So I asked all of these bakeries whose work I just thought was absolutely amazing, and some people whose work that I hadn't really seen before, and I kid you not, I got rejected many times. And I think the reason for that is because sugar sheet technique is quite a new technique, and honestly, I actually thought it was kind of good that I got rejected by these bakeries. Some of them were quite honest and said that they didn't feel like they knew how to do it up to the par of the rest of the cakes that they put out, so I thought that was great. And I said this to you guys before, don't really try out new things, brand new, because it can be really challenging to do something under pressure if you've never done it before. So let's see how these bakeries handled my sugar sheet technique. So right off the bat, this is the home bakery business that I purchased from. I love the packaging. Normally when I give my cakes away, they're not this well packaged. So I gotta find out where she got her packaging from because it's absolutely wonderful. And I have to say, transporting this on the way home was super easy. I also love that she included a candle on top of this as well. So the instructions that I gave both cake places is I said, I want you to recreate this cake exactly. Can you do that? And I showed them this picture. So the home bakery was really good with communication, and they basically said, yes, we can recreate that, but I'm going to have to replace those cherries with strawberries because obviously cherries are not in season right now, so that was good. I really liked that they told me right up front that I would not be receiving cherries. So right away before any deposits or anything was put down, that's what they told me. So I really appreciated that. The next thing was that they said they were going to make it as similar as possible to the picture. So I really like that wording too, because it's not like they just agreed to make the cake exactly as is in the picture, which a lot of bakeries don't like to do. So some bakeries are like, yeah, I can make it exactly like that, but a lot of bakeries choose to say, I can make something similar to that. And I think that's really, really good wording because that saves you in case the cake doesn't look exactly like the picture. The other thing I really, really love and I think is a beautiful touch is this ombre candle that is on top as well. I didn't really say what this was for. I didn't specify what it was for, but I did say to put 1,000 subscribers on the cakes. So it'll be really exciting to see how they decided to do that. So I'm going to unbox these. This is a really clever box. I think I might save this box and reuse it for my own cakes. All right, let's take a look at this. So right off the bat, I can say that this whole portion here and the shape of the sugar sheet is really quite close to what I asked for. Now, the problem here is that I didn't say that I wanted the sugar sheet technique when I ordered this. I just said that I wanted it exactly like the picture. And in my picture, you can see my sugar sheet is quite sparkly. And this actually uses wafer paper. So what you see ending up happening here is all of this puckering. And this is very common of wafer paper because as we know, as soon as that wafer paper gets wet, it starts to crinkle like this. But sugar sheet actually stays nice and sparkly and clean the whole way through. So that's one thing that I really noticed with this cake. The other thing is this was a sugar heart. And so as we know, again, with wafer paper, it's starting to bend and it's not really a heart shape anymore. So you never really want to use wafer paper when you're trying to make sugar decor. And the sugar decor is actually a lot easier to make than the sheet itself because the sheet's issue is that everything has to stand up. And in order to get that sugar sheet to temp and really make sure that you've done that well, it is a bit of a skill. But when you're making sugar sheet like appliques, they're really easy because you just take a cookie cutter, you punch it out, you let it dry forever and ever, and then it will be a solidified shape. So I think if this baker didn't want to do the sugar sheet, then I feel like maybe a fondant heart would have been a better choice because at least then it would be heart shaped. Now, of course, I am a baker ordering a cake, so I know what different mediums are used. But your average person that's ordering a cake might not know that it was an actual sugar sheet that was used. But the things that they will know is they will know that they asked for something that had that shiny exterior. And this is not shiny. And this heart is not really that nice shiny heart that they might have been looking for if they were to order a cake exactly like the one that I made previously. But the swoops on top are really gorgeous. There's lots of strawberries on here, so that looks really beautiful. I also think that this buttercream edging is like very, very clean. And I really, really appreciate how clean that buttercream swipe is. I really love that. And I also think that this portion here is really well done, where we have all of those rock candies on there. That looks really great too. And the ombre effect is very, very close to what I had done. And you know, like I've said before, we have one major kind of cake and cookie supply shop. And so I think that we probably use the same brands in terms of what is used for this airbrushing machine. And so that's why the airbrush color is like basically the same airbrush color. And I really love the marbling and all that kind of stuff. So I think that in terms of replication, this does a pretty good job because it looks pretty similar to the cake that I asked for. The only thing that was a bit disappointing was the heart wafer paper because this part here is, you can fake and that can kind of look like the picture, but this here is very, very folded and it doesn't look like the picture in my opinion. I really like this banner here too. Now, if you are going to use wafer paper as a banner, it is a little bit of a risk sometimes because you don't know how that wafer paper is going to react. I was also told to put this in my fridge, and I also suggest that you don't put wafer paper in the fridge if it's something that is standing up like this. Because if there's any moisture in your customer's fridge, then that moisture is definitely gonna cause this all to crinkle and ripple. I do appreciate though that the bakery used a really nice thick cake drum. This is going to ensure that the cake doesn't have any bending whatsoever and that it stays nice and solid. Let's get out my second cake. Again, the creative boxing. I have never done this. Usually I leave just a side open, but this is like good because where we live, it rains a lot. My story with this cake is I did have to reach out to the bakery a few times to see if they could make this cake. And I did try more than once to order the cake from this bakery. Their turnaround times were a little bit long and it just seemed like they weren't getting back to me. But the reason that I really wanted to try this bakery is because I tried cakes from this bakery before and they were absolutely amazing in taste. So I really wanted to try it out and see what their custom cakes were like. So when I originally bought this cake, I brought it into the car and I was really pleased to see that sugar sheet technique was used. And it was actually sugar or sprinkles that were used on the side of the cake as opposed to wafer paper. But when I got into the car, that sugar sheet started to melt and flop into the cake. And I had a fear before I went to go pick up the cakes that this may happen to one or both of the cakes because sugar sheet technique is very finicky and it is more susceptible to weather and humidity. So I kind of had a fear that that might happen, but I wasn't sure if it would or not. So unfortunately that did happen with this cake, but I said I would come back and pick it up later and see if that technique would work if the bakery just had a little bit more time. So let's see what happened. So unfortunately, this is what happened to the cake. So bad that this has happened to the cake. I honestly, when I just opened it just now, I was expecting it to be standing. The cake decorator briefly showed it to me when she opened up the box and then closed it. And it was standing. So I thought that when I opened it up that it would be standing. Honestly, the owners of this bakery were like the sweetest people I have talked to, and they clearly wanted this to work out. And I'm glad that it was just for me to see what this cake was like, because I think that this would be a really tough situation to possibly deal with if it was for a more major event than, you know, me just sitting in front of my camera. So let's take a look at the other aspects before we get to the sugar sheet portion. So now with this bakery, I did ask for the exact same cake, just like the exact same directions and requests that I asked for this cake. And in response, they said that they could make the cake exactly like it. Basically, you know, both cakes kind of went the same way in terms of communication. This cake did ask for a deposit. This cake, they did not ask me for a deposit of any sort. So as I can see, all of this ombre effect and things that I had done on my cake are somewhat there. There's some of this happening, which is exactly what I did with my cake. If I'm looking at the sides here and this rock candy portion, this is a lot closer because I actually used rock candy. Here it seems like they used sugar to create the rocks themselves. Then here on the top, they used gold quins, which is not what I used. And I do believe I did use the gold pearls like on this cake, but I also believe that I used gold splatter as well. And both of the cakes did not have gold splatter on the top. Now, looking at this heart is a little bit more of a heart, and it is holding its shape slightly better, but I can see just from holding this heart, I can see that it's flimsy still. So when I had my heart on top, it was rock solid, like a hard candy, whereas this is very bendable. and it's pliable. So that has me a little bit worried. And I think that's why this sugar sheet is not working out. So this sugar sheet here, these pieces that have fallen, such a sad time. Yeah, again, very, very pliable. It's also incredibly thick. This thickness kind of works like how fondant works. So if you've ever seen my tutorials before, I've talked about how if you're putting like a detail, like let's say you wanted to put a fondant heart on top of a cupcake, then you would make that fondant just a little bit thicker so that it can stand up on its own faster. And I think that's maybe the method that was used for this, because they thought maybe, okay, if it's thicker, it can stand up on its own faster, which it can. But in terms of long term, it's not gonna get hard through and through. And because my sugar sheet is so tall, like I'd say my sugar sheet was more like this height, it's never gonna work, because you're gonna get that thickness. It takes a long time for this thickness to be worked through. Now, looking at this as well, it's just taking a guess that this sugar sheet was built up with sugar that was maybe dyed rather than sprinkles itself. It's hard to tell. That is a complete guess, but I think that's why I'm not getting that super shiny quality on the outside here. But yeah, it's just so pliable. The other thing is the gold that was used is a bit of a different quality than the gold that was used here. The gold that was used here really looks close to the Truly Madly Plastics gold that I use. And this looks more like a yellowy gold. So it's just a little bit different than what I used. Again, not a big deal, but I would have liked this to be standing. Oh, okay, and then the other thing is this piping is a lot closer to the piping that I did in my picture. So I piped that using the same tip. She obviously used a 1M, and this is also a 1M as well, but this one was more of a star squeeze, and this one was more of a swirl, like the way that was on my cake. In terms of the 1,000 subscribers, they both chose to do it in different ways. This one was done with a chocolate plaque, which I think is a very delicious way to do things, and this was done with that wafer paper. All right, let's get into the pricing of these cakes. So for this cake, I paid $75 Canadian, and for this cake, I was originally quoted $80 for this cake, but then when I went to go pay for it, it only came out to like $63 with tax included and everything. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of these two cakes. All right, now we're gonna get into the tasting portion. Okay, let's give it a taste. It smells pretty coffee-y. To me, it kind of looks like maybe they've flavored this with espresso powder. The one thing I'm a little bit worried about is what the pink is. I'm hoping it's just vanilla buttercream, but we'll see. Quite moist. And that's great. To me, that just tastes exactly like what I would expect. A nice, beautiful mocha coffee cake. And quite moist. The crumb is quite delicious. And it's pretty light and fluffy too. So I really like that. I want to use the candle that they gave me. Do you sing something for when you get 1,000 subscribers? Happy subscriber count to me. Just kidding, I'm not gonna put you through that. All right guys, let's get cutting into this. Now my original cake had a cherry compote in it. So for this one, I actually ordered it to have a strawberry filling, whatever that may be. Sorry guys, my camera ran out of battery, so I'm going to show you this again. Well, for you, it's the first time, but for me, it's the second time. So I finally got that piece of cake out of there, and it seems like there's a strawberry jam, as well as some sort of fresh strawberries in there too. And this is so moist. And I can see this a little bit more clearly in this cake. I can't really see it so much in this cake. but I think there is some sugar syrup that was poured in here, which is why it's so moist. And I can just see it kind of in the crumb a little bit. And this actually tastes really, really similar to my strawberry cakes that I make too. So I like it, it's great. I love the recipe, it's awesome. So let's go ahead and break down what I think about both these cakes. Firstly, in terms of the communication of both bakeries. So I think that the home baker kind of wins it here because they responded to me within about 12 to 24 hours for every single message and question that I ever had. They also made sure to say that they weren't going to replicate it exactly, but that they were going to try and do it as close as possible. In terms of replication, it's hard to say which one I would choose because this one did make sure that they used the sugar sheet technique. This one used wafer paper instead of the sugar sheet. So it's hard to say which one is better in terms of replication, but if I really had to choose, I think I would choose this cake just because they did copy the gold pearls that I did, and they also did the swoop on top just like I had. And in terms of looking at this just at a glance, this one more so has that ombre effect as well as the same gold that I used. And if it's not the same gold, it looks very, very similar. The rock additions were also very, very close to what I had going on as well. Now, in terms of value for each cake, this one being at $75 and this one sitting around that $63 mark, I would have to give it to this bakery. This bakery's cake is actually a little bit larger than this bakery's cake, and this bakery did attempt to do the sugar sheet technique, which would in turn be more expensive, whereas this bakery chose to do wafer paper, which is a lot cheaper and a lot easier. And in terms of taste, I think they both nailed it. They both taste absolutely wonderful and they're both really, really delicious. In terms of customer service, I think they both also did really, really well. I love the way that both bakeries treated me and they were very, very kind and clearly have a passion for what they do. Let me know down in the comments below, guys, which cake was your favorite? Which cake do you think nailed it in terms of replicating my cake that I had? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye.